Hello, my name is Noah Schlegel, and today I will be talking about a situation happening in John and Mary's relationship. So, in the relationship, they had some trouble with some of the words that John was using, and Mary confronted John, and she talked about how she didn't feel comfortable with the words he was using, as she found them offensive towards the people he was talking about, and towards her because of her past situation and the culture that she grew up in. John heard this and he brushed it off and ignored it because it was not an issue that affected him, because the people were not able to hear him. Overall, he did not listen well. That is his biggest issue. He came into the situation and he listened just to prove his point and to keep his lack of guiltiness and to keep his innocence, instead of listening to learn. One thing that he should have done immediately is he should have been listening attentively. He should have been listening to all the words that she was saying, because if he'd listened to everything that Mary was saying without talking first, he would have heard how she had a personal connection to the words that he was saying and how she felt personally hurt by what he was saying. He also should have been listening to learn. He should have been listening and not immediately responded, but thought about his response. And he should have thought about his response, and that way he was able to respond in a way that hit on all the points that she was making, not just the points that he wanted to make. Also, in his response, he showed a lack of understanding of culture in the relationship, as the relationship had been long lasting. And there had been many times of communication before. He should have known where she grew up and known the context of that, but obviously he must have either missed it or was ignoring it. And instead of focusing on the culture that she grew up with and the context of the situation and putting that before the words that he says, he used his words immediately and did not think before he spoke. And in the situation, he had a chance to think back on that, but ignored that and pushed that aside. And that was just another example of him immediately saying stuff instead of taking the time. And that's what I would say would be the best solution for John, is aside from the fact that he had offensive words in his normal vocabulary, he could have solved this entire situation and handled it a lot better if he had just taken a step back. He had responded and communicated in a patient manner and gathered his thoughts and restated what Mary had said before giving his response. And that's something that we all can learn. There's lots of times where we communicate in our interpersonal relationships where, when there's a conflict, we respond what we want to say and communicate without actually listening to the other person and taking all of their ideas and critiques. But sometimes if we just took a step back and we listened to their critiques and we took them in and thought about them and maybe even discussed them. If John had discussed her critiques in a willing to learn manner, they could have moved forward, but instead he just pushed it aside and basically operated in a full avoidance way. There was no compromising, there was no obligation, there was no working together. He avoided the situation, you could also say that he dominated, as he put his ideas above the context of the situation and above Mary's ideas, and it ultimately resulted in zero communication and hurt communication for the coming future. And that is just one of many problems that not being patient and not taking a step back can result in. Thank you so much for listening, and just remember, be patient in your communication.